ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience, really appreciate it. And we're going straight into the next session, which is about shared futures, global collaboration. And I'd like to ask the following people to join me here on stage. Ladies first, Julia Sutcliffe, Chief Technologist and Head of Engineering at BAE Systems. Thank you. Paul Stein, Chief Technology Officer at Rolls-Royce UK. Iain Stewart, President of the National Research Council of Canada. Joost Schut, Co-founder and Commercial Director at KE Works, the Netherlands. And last but not least, Dr. Mark Schut, Chief Scientific Advisor at the Department for International Trade, United Kingdom. Thank you so much that you are attending this session. And ladies and gentlemen, what will we actually be discussing during this session? We will discuss the challenges, the future trends, and ultimately also the successes of global collaborations. And those people can tell you all about it from their broad experience that they're bringing along. So figures from business are over here, from innovative startups, and they're very happy to share their experiences about setting up profitable global collaboration, but also what their vision is, and if they have a kind of a crystal ball of where future potential markets may arise. So, lovely panel. I'd like to first ask you to just give a brief introduction about yourself, and to make a small input statement, and I think we're very keen to hear from you how your organization has really dealt with global collaboration and how it has led to your organization's success. I'll be quite strict on the timing, so 2 to 3 minutes, but I'm sure you're really familiar and accustomed to that. So Julia, may I ask you to take the floor first?
Thank you. So in my role as Chief Technologist then at BAE Systems, my role is to understand innovation, investment, and collaboration across the technological landscape. So the organization that I'm in is a large global organization. So we have a big footprint within the UK, within the US, within Australia, within the Middle East, and within Asia. So global collaboration is part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I guess some of the things that I'm noticing is that previously global collaboration might have meant design and manufacture of a product in one country and perhaps sales in a different market. But I think today the technological revolution that we're seeing with the Industry 4.0 technologies is really enabling global collaboration in a different way through digital tool sets, for example. And if I was to make one key point that I think is changing, from an aerospace sector perspective, development timeframes are often very long, so it can be decades. That has meant that traditionally it's quite difficult for a large-scale organization to collaborate with SMEs and smaller organizations. What we're seeing is with the underpinning technologies being dual use, so applicable in both aerospace defense sector and in the commercial sector, it's enabling a much more innovative collaboration because SMEs can make money during that sort of long development time frames of some of the aerospace sector products. So I think technology is enabling globalization and collaboration in a different way. So it's a really exciting time.
Okay, thank you very much. So technology brings together the larger and the smaller
Absolutely.
companies. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks, Charlotte. Well, Rolls-Royce, as many of you probably know, is a global power systems company, and we tend to make quite complex products where global cooperation is simply a must. In jet engines, we only actually make 30% of the value of the products, with 70% coming in from the global supply chain. And of that 70%, only 30% is actually in the UK. So this involves coordinating a sort of a global network of suppliers. And some of those suppliers aren't just suppliers, they actually share in the R&D costs and even in the success or outcome of the products. And quite Famously, we have a great relationship with Japan, where some of the Japanese heavy industries are actually risk and revenue sharing partners for us. So they actually design a part of the product and take complete accountability for it. As we move forwards and start to look at the electrification of aviation, which is a really exciting future and one that is going to involve some huge technological challenges, there is no one nation that can do it all. And it's a necessary combination of all of the big industrialized nations. And in fact, I added up who we've currently got in our partnership, which is the UK, US, Germany, Norway, Singapore, and Japan now, all working in harmony towards an outcome that is really quite a sort of North Star challenge in aviation. So global cooperation is just part of the pulse of what happens in aviation.
Okay, so it's key to keeping your competitive edge.
Absolutely.
Okay, Iain.
Okay, so the National Research Council is a government corporation, and it was designed and built to be a platform for collaboration. And a significant part of that collaboration is international. The National Research Council has two components. It's a national network of labs, and those labs work with companies on their projects. And we have partnerships with, I think right now, 468 international companies this current year. And we, of the $221 million of collaboration funding we receive from our partners, about 30% of it is actually international companies. So international is very big for us. The second thing we do is we're a funder. We're a funding agency, and we fund SMEs. And we fund those SMEs, again, for international collaborations as well as domestic ones. And that's why we're Canada's Eureka partner, and we're very proud to be so. Eureka is a great platform for us since 2012 when we joined. We've done about 168 projects through Eureka, and we'd like to see more activity in this area.
Okay, thank you very much. Joost.
Well, I'll scale it down slightly because I'm working for an SME. But for us, Eureka is also one of the key points I wanted to make in the introduction and the collaboration that we do as an SME. We're a software company and really focus on innovation, which means that we have to focus on the niche that we're active in, which is digital collaboration, which means that we have to partner with other SMEs in order to bring integrated solutions that actually can help our customers or larger customers, sitting here for instance, to actually develop solutions that can work out. So for us, having a stage where we can meet other innovative companies that build other building blocks of solutions that are complementary with ours is essential for growth of our own company, but also I think for a future in which we can build with networks of SMEs far more integrated solutions that we are able to do today within larger corporations.
Thank you very much.
DIT is Department for International Trade, so supporting export and inward investment, but by nature, international technical collaboration is part of the mix. I've just returned back from Taiwan and South Korea, where we were looking at smart cities and the exchange of ideas around smart cities. How can we learn from each other around the world? Some of the Asian activities are very interesting in terms of some of the developments that are taking place over there. Last week I went to somewhere called Satellite 2019, looking at the satellite industry and the importance of space. And it's notable, with it being the 50th anniversary of the first man on the moon, that there is a lot more interest in satellite and space today than ever before. Very pleased to have supported 40 British companies who were part of that delegation to Washington. And we could see lots of collaboration emerging from the event itself. So we, from a trade point of view, support events, we support trade policy, we support some exporters as well as inward investors and collaboration.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, when we talk about global collaboration, I'd like to ask mainly the companies and the SME on board here, how important is it for governments to act as a facilitator to continue your business? And the reason why I'm asking that, it also comes back to the point that Minister Skidmore made regarding the International Research and Innovation Strategy that was released today, for example. So how important is the role of governments? Julia?
So the role of government is really fundamentally important to us. So for starts, it sets the strategy. So whether it's the defence industrial strategy or the combat air strategy in my case, they are really important guiding mechanisms for industry. In addition, much of the international trade from an aerospace sector perspective is through government-to-government arrangements. So it's really, really important that we work closely with government, and they are fundamental to the success of British industry.
Okay, so working together with government also means using the embassies that you have in other countries and put them to work. Okay,
absolutely.
Thank you. Paul?
Yes, I'd like to emphasize both of Julia's points and make a third one. So the role of government in collaboration in research is, I think, a great catalyst for future cooperation, because if we work together on the fundamentals, whether it be digital, whether it be the physical world, then there's a natural partnership that then grows and evolves, and you know people and the relationships are there. So research tends to blossom into wealth creation. That would be the first thing. The second thing, I think, is just the obvious one of removing trade barriers so that people and know-how and goods can simply flow to do the right thing for us all, rather than having kind of barriers get in the way, and perhaps that's quite topical given a few things in the news right now. And the third role of government is a sort of, and maybe I'll turn to Mike to develop on this one, is to convene people where standards are required to facilitate international trade and growth. So these are sort of technical standards, so we're all working to the same formula. But I'll defer to Mike to develop that a little bit further.
Thank you. We'll come back to the standards later on for sure. Joost, do you work together with governments at all? Do you feel you're being supported?
During our life cycle as a company, I think we've used several cases of governmental support. And so we started, for instance, in the Technology Accelerator, which is really a local government. But on the other end, we started as a company as a spin-out from the ITEA, which is part of Eureka. And we're still very active in ITEA in order to really be on the forefront. And the only way to be there is by governmental support of building that vision, supporting it, funding it, very important part, and also setting the goals of how to strengthen collaboration with standards is, I think, key in order to move this conservative technological industry towards a more collaborative environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Then perhaps also a question for both Mike and Iain. The reason why we're here is to discuss shared futures and to see if we have a shared future at all. And I'd like to pinpoint to some of the technologies, the current trends, AI, machine learning, deep learning. Do you have a specific approach within your agency and department on these kind of future trends? Iain?
Well, so our labs are active in those areas. We've been working on machine learning for decades, and in fact, one of my colleagues, Joe Martin's here, who leads that lab. And the same would be true for other disruptive technologies, for genomics, for quantum. Yeah. These are all areas that we're trying to ourselves, through our work, be at the forefront. But staying at the forefront, you have to recognize that excellence happens all over the place, and certainly outside your own doors. And so we do a lot of deep collaboration with universities. In fact, we've been setting up a range of collaboration centers, and they're on these topics. These tend to be the topics where the universities have just excellent things happening that we're trying to pull into our labs and into applications with our partners. And I want to stress the need to internationalize the research in these areas. Sometimes there's a bit of a nativist approach in some of these topic areas where domestic economies want to capture all these benefits and so focus on it themselves. But I think all of us will be better off if we take a more collaborative approach. Certainly on the regulatory side, you see that. Paul's already touched on areas like AI, where the more we create an accepted set of norms and behaviors, the easier it'll be for companies internationally to bring products into that space. But I think that's true for all of the disruptive technologies.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Mike?
Well, I think horizons depend on how far out you want to go. I think in the case of AI, the ability to innovate in that depends not just on the skills, but also the access to the data that you need. And I think what we're going to hear at this conference is a lot more about data sharing and how can data be appropriately shared, both privately but appropriately in a business-to-business or research-to-research sense. The basis for AI innovation is huge in every sector, so there's a lot of enormity in that area. Some other horizons I think we're going to hear more about is to do with the future of driverless cars and the future of mobility in terms of electrification. That requires collaboration in itself, and no one company, no one country can do it on their own.
Right.
And I think that's partly why Paul, I think, was referring to standards, because actually we need to find some standard setting, whether it's to do with ethics or technical interfaces. We need to find better standard setting processes for some of these new future-proofing areas.
Okay, so well, let's turn then to the standards discussion. So standards are really key to make like fertile global collaboration happen. Paul, what's your take on that? Without standards, it's really hard to collaborate across the borders. So you all have like the common kind of line you're following.
Standards really is the sort of lubricant that makes global international partnership work. I'll give an example of a challenge that's upcoming rather than a historical challenge, and that's Industry 4.0. So this dream that high-tier manufacturers, maybe us, can buy from a global supply chain by creating a standard 3D definition of what it is we want, posting it up into a cloud, and then any global supplier can come along and make something to that standard. Now, the technical hurdles are huge. They need to be overcome, but the quicker we can get to that vision, you can just imagine how that's going to unlock a whole different world of competition and global cooperation, just with that particular angle. And I could give other examples, but I'll defer to the panel for those.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
So one of the most successful standards that has emerged from Europe has been GSM Mobile, and I've had 30 years in mobile telecommunications. And if we think what that's done, it's actually opened up a market for close on 9.5 billion customers. But it's more than that. It's a platform on which other innovation can now sit. Next year, we mark 20 years of the mobile camera phone. Imagine a world without a mobile camera phone, when initially it was thought of as a bit strange. But actually, we wouldn't perhaps have selfies without a mobile camera phone. Okay. We wouldn't be sharing information in social media without a mobile camera phone. Also imagine how mobile money transfer is working in parts of East Africa based on mobile and SMS. That's opened up transactions in communities that didn't have easy access to a bank. If we look to new frontiers like mobile health, we can start to see other things innovating around the mobile standards that exist, whether it's 2G, 3G, 4G or 5G. So some of these standards are great platforms for innovation in themselves, and they are international in nature. And I've seen no technology stopping at borders in recent years because of that. People want to have the same that everybody else has, even if they want to innovate with it in a slightly different way.
Yeah. So standards really provide a common framework. And if you have that common framework, of course, the most excellent research, the best innovations will pop up. So, Joost, how do you go about? You use standards a lot, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, I think they're key, but I also want to link back to the previous statement on data, because that's one of the things where I, in my field of work, encounter the need of standards. If you want to have the data set in order to use your AI to the full potential, you need a structured data set that you're able to share, connect, extend, and it's impossible if you didn't agree on what you're actually taking as a baseline. So in their standards within companies already, but even bigger between companies and between economies, I think really can grow to a really large potential. And that's one of the things that we were discussing at the beginning, also preparing for this session, was that the classical software really has a defensive shield around it in order to protect the economical interests in there. And I think that is one of the main challenges for the next five years to attack.
Understand it. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've learned already this morning that we have more than 2,000 attendees from 65 countries. I'm not sure if you are all collaborating with those 65 countries. That is an awful lot. But it does give you an opportunity about looking into future potential new markets. So how do you go about entering new markets? How do you approach this? Perhaps, Julia, can you allude to that? Do you have an example?
So what we are seeing in, say, the markets in which we operate as part of the globalization drive, I mentioned at the beginning that Perhaps if you go back a number of decades, you might have had products that were made in one part of the world and sold elsewhere. What we're now seeing across the markets in which we operate is collaboration and cooperation happening at the very earliest stages of the life cycle, so that we design globally and collaboratively, and we build and manufacture around the world in different parts of the global footprint in order to access and provide products and services into those markets.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, interesting. So our strategy for globalization has very much been one of creating a number of home markets around the world and using those as a basis for globalization. And a home market is one where we do research, we do manufacturing, we do local supply chain development, we do primary manufacture, final assembly, and even servicing, all in that country. And so we become part of the sort of economic well-being of that country. And then once you've got to that place, it then becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, and you can grow and internationalize, and then it helps you internally through having a multiple set of cultures within your own company. Now, maybe that's a lesson that is more applicable to larger companies, but nevertheless, I still would share it with those large companies present. You know, that is the most successful way to internationalize and globalize.
So it's not like a charity or anything. It's really providing aid and, well, supporting the well-being of the country by the activities that you pursue.
No, not a charity at all. I mean, you want to be as much thought of as part of the economic well-being. You know, in Singapore, for example, we're the same fraction of the gross domestic product in Singapore as we are in the UK. And, you know, we've got to that stage by declaring them to be one of our home countries, and we think of Singapore as home.
No. Okay, thank you. Iain, you already have a lot of bilateral collaborations running via Eureka, for example, but I'm sure you have many more.
Well, I think Canada is an open trading country, and we're currently, we have 3 trade agreements in play right now. We've just finished with the renegotiation of NAFTA. We've, of course, got our agreement with the EU, and we're part of course, the Pacific Agreement as well. And reflecting that in immigration terms, we're also an open country. And we accept about 300,000 new Canadians every year. My organization, my vice president of research told me we have people from 94 countries around the world working on our staff. So why do I say all that to answer your question? Canada wants to be a partner and a collaborator structurally and culturally. And we like to let relationships happen and then follow the relationships. When it comes to the science side of the NRC, we're of course looking for excellence. What we want to find is the partner who knows more than we do, or that we can collaborate each other and work together. So it tends to be driven by the pursuit of the opportunity. But when it comes to supporting SMEs, what we're really trying to do is have their success be our success, and let them tell us where do they wish to be. Okay. And one of the things I love about Eureka is that it's a common platform that creates a norm set on how we're going to behave together to support the partners. But the partners themselves pursue the opportunities and see what's there for them. So we don't identify a market and then go into it in a way which is in your question. We're trying to be a platform for people to come together.
So you listen carefully to the companies and see, together with them, what could be the potential markets to tap into. Okay, Joost, what is it like as an SME to tap into new markets?
I think they're twofold. One of them is the challenge in innovation, digitalization and automation itself, which means that solutions that you deliver today are not fit for tomorrow even, because in the primary business process you're continuously changing, which means that we're in continuous discussion with our customers in order to improve what they actually need. And the other is more the relationship that we have with our partners, is that when we sell our platform as a white label, and then we really connect to our partners, and through them we are able to deliver completely different solutions connected to their applications.
Okay, thank you. Mike, how do you go about within your organization?
Well, clearly, because I work for the UK government, you know, we actually collaborate with all governments around the world. But I would say that behind innovation, we need to think about scale-ups, and that can't be done for one country alone. If we think about scaling up innovation, 2 of the biggest inventions of the last century included mobile and the internet, and actually they are now global propositions. And as such, we need to have norms that allow us to innovate on those two platforms. Because of the scale issue. If the scale is there, you can share the R&D across borders, you can lower unit costs, you can make it more accessible to everybody. Scale is important.
Thank you very much. And we'll be running a session about support to scale up tomorrow as well, and we'll tackle that for sure. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to turn to Slido and see if there are any questions from your side. So if we can please put up the Slido on the screen. Okay, so I have it in the monitor in front of me, I've just heard. And there is no question submitted yet. Ladies and gentlemen, you are really more than welcome to tap into the discussion. So I'll tune back into you in about 5 minutes, and we would be really happy to see some engagement from your side as well. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to ask also a question regarding those kind of future trends for global collaboration. Well, we talked about more the technology and the technological side of things, like the AI, the machine learning, the deep learning. But I think it goes much further than that, right? We hear more about interdisciplinarity, so not just technology doing its thing, because in the end, technology at itself doesn't really mean anything. It needs to be applicable. So what are the future trends more on like the, I would say on the soft side, not the hard technology side? Julia, can you elaborate on that?
That's a great question. So when we think about the future capability needs or the future skills needs, if you like, within a business like ours, technology, so STEM skills are fundamentally important, but more and more we are seeing the need for creativity that is larger than just the technological sector. We need creativity of thought, a truly diverse thought in order to ensure business success. So that means not just people that have done STEM subjects at school, but people that might have gone into architecture, that people are into design, and different parts of that sort of creativity spectrum are required. And I think that's what we're seeing in some of the industries that are starting up today and some of the organizations that are developing, where the barriers to entry are low. Technology has lowered the barriers to entry, so it's a natural way for a creative community to get involved, and we are certainly looking for many more perhaps non-traditional skills than we'd looked at before in order to create that more creative, softer approach to some of the how we will utilize technology and how we'll collaborate together.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that something that you experience as well within your company, Paul? Do you have creativity labs, living labs, to bring together different kind of brains, minds?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I'd obviously support Julia's position fully, that, creating a sort of a thinking pot from a variety of people from diverse backgrounds creates a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. I was thinking of a specific example, and in fact, I can't give the detail away, but it was a team from Singapore and a team from the UK trying to come up with a very difficult challenge, which was to do with a commercial negotiation that we had with a third party. And it was absolutely fascinating watching how the different thinking styles added together, and a solution came out of it that would never have occurred from any one culture on its own. Absolutely brilliant, actually. And if everyone wanted a lesson in how diverse cultures outperform single cultures, that would have been there. Perhaps one day I'm allowed to give you the detail.
So they can just come to you.
But
they can just come to you and to learn from your team.
Well, possibly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for making that offer for us.
Of course, it's a big offer. Iain, what's your experience? I'm sure within a research council, interdisciplinarity is already part and parcel of your partnerships.
Yeah, we use large-scale programs to draw across the research centers, across the different disciplines. We set challenge programs. We've been doing that since about 2012, and it works quite well. But with the innovation system more largely, large organizations like our own, I won't speak for the private sector colleagues, but large organizations like our own, like a government lab, You know, it's hard to create the churn and frenzy and effervescent nature, you know, of innovation that you'd actually like to have sometimes because of the structures and the scale and so on. And so what we've been trying to do increasingly is move ourselves out of our labs, whether it's into the university campus, but also into the market. Especially I find for digital technology, what's happening out in the SME startup scene by way of advancing technologies is quite often far more exciting and interesting than what's happening inside larger scale organizations, whether public or private. So as a strategy, we've been trying to bust down the walls and create more connectivity in that way.
Okay, thank you. Joost, you must probably have all the skills as an entrepreneur who has its own startup, creativity,
You have to start
technological skills. Yeah.
You have to start in the mud anyway. Yeah. So the only way, we're in digitization, right? So the only way to really make a difference is to turn it completely around. So not view it from a viewpoint of bureaucracy and control, but see it from the viewpoint of the end user and say, what is your personal cockpit? And how is it going to look like? And then on the other side, you have this whole range of people. So we're also active in infrastructure, branches of people that I cannot differentiate in groups, but some people are older than 50, let's say. And then you have to help them, also starting with an iPad, using that. And so from there on, you can really make a difference. And if they can be connected to their other colleagues, you see that the culture inside the company is also changing. And that's one of the things that I see happening. So if you focus on the end users, and the other that is really seeing the more successful customers is that the management really has a clear vision and is able to execute it over a longer period of time, such that the trust of the, let's say, workforce is actually built within the management, and the connection is kept in that transition.
Yeah, trust is key as well.
Yes.
So Mike, how are you doing within administration? At creativity skills, 21st century skills, STEM skills? You've got it all in your department?
Well, I'm not sure we got it all covered, but I think the skills range, we have significantly high levels of skills. But I'd like to just go back briefly to, I helped set up one of the leading accelerators in the UK some 8 years ago. And accelerators that help startups really are diverse in their nature. They have to be, otherwise they fail, they leave. And some of the leading accelerators are really strong on the people side, but also particularly access to mentors, skilled mentors that might add value to the startup in different ways. Very good on access to money, and very good on access and understanding markets. And if you bring all those ingredients together, I mean, the startup I helped to start now supports 50 startups a year. That's just one. The UK is very good on the accelerator space, with many accelerators and incubators across the UK now. Some in areas as diverse as cybersecurity or transport telematics, not just the pure digital space.
Okay.
And that requires diversity by its very nature.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to see that we've got a couple of questions on our screen. Let us start with the top question. Regarding standardization, do you see this as a top-down or bottom-up activity? Who should drive it, an SME or large companies? Interesting question. Who would be willing to take this question? Mike.
My answer is both, because you need a blend of top-down and bottom-up. But I think in terms of who should drive it, I think it should be driven by an idea which will meet a market need. That may come from an SME or a large company, or indeed sometimes from government. I think it needs a mechanism to hold the people together, whether they be competitors or collaborators. There needs a mechanism to hold them together.
Okay, so everyone should be involved and drive it. Okay, anyone who would like to add to this question? Or
I think Mike's
fully
answer
agree?
applies
You fully
to every
agree?
industry I've been involved with.
Then perhaps a question on what is the first point of call for startup businesses to find out all of the opportunities available and get involved? So is there like a gateway where you can tap into? Iain is nodding yes.
Well, nationally, I think you'll find solutions. And I was just wondering, as I was reading the question about internationally, I'm sure Eureka is a helpful partner in that regard. Nationally, we've set up, of course, a website through which you can enter the funding and support programs in Canada, Innovation Canada, it's called. And then we have on the ground in many communities our program, the Industrial Research Assistance Program, which is the funding program that funds our collaboration in Eureka. But I think what would be most helpful for SMEs is that you try to adopt a no wrong door policy among the bureaucracies. Quite often there are many departments involved in supporting innovation and science in one way or another. So things like Innovation Canada on the web is meant to help you find the right partner. But it's also really important that once somebody connects with you, if you're not the right partner, you help them find the right partner. It's very confusing for SMEs to deal with government, which I'm sure you can attest to. Others in the room can attest to.
Okay.
You have to learn.
So it should be a kind of an ecosystem where everyone helps everyone. If you're not at the right gateway, that at least they send you to the right gateway to find more information.
Yes.
So Joost, how did you go about it? Did you go to the Dutch Enterprise Agency? Did you knock on the door of local agencies?
Now, my answer would be twofold. The first one would be get out of the building. So sitting here is, I think, a very good first step. And then one is through your own network. So obviously there are locations in which SMEs are innovative together. Those are, as you were saying, a very excellent position to start. And I think any government, I know for sure the Dutch government has, but I hear you talk about Canadian, and I cannot imagine any other government doesn't have it. There's always a point of contact. So you can always call, and it's always for free. So if you only have to go there. Yeah.
As long as it is for free. So that's the key.
That helps initially.
Yeah. Of course, I understand. Okay, a final question I'd like to take from the audience. What, from your experience, are the best practical vehicles to meet and develop ideas for collaboration with SMEs as well as large corporations? Paul, perhaps you can allude to that.
So there's obviously a need for a multiplicity of contact points within large organizations, and having one innovation mechanism globally is not the right solution. Having said that, we use a sort of a software platform, and perhaps I shouldn't mention the name of the company, but we use a software platform, an innovation software platform that seems to work really well for us, which is a challenge response type of platform where somebody from somewhere in the world, in Rolls-Royce, puts up, has anyone got a solution to X or Y or Z? And it's very much solution-based innovation. And then from around the world, people start responding, and people build on each other's ideas. And some of those challenges are moved out into our university supply chain. So we've got 31 universities that work with us. And that tends to be incredibly successful. And I can cite a number of in-service developments that have been as a result of that.
Okay, so you're really putting technology again into practice for your own sake of finding the right collaborations with...
Facilitating the acceleration of ideas and connecting people.
Okay.
But I will end by saying, isn't about one thing. There's a number of different mechanisms you put in place to facilitate global innovation.
Okay, thank you very much. Julia, you have the same experience. You provide platforms for interaction.
Yeah, I would say to build on Paul's response, we also have a strong university collaboration framework and a network of universities, which is key. And in addition, I think the catapults are a really good vehicle for having a mix of different industries, large and small, that can all work on a sort of a set of topics, if you like. So I would encourage getting engaged with the catapult network.
Yep. Okay, so the catapults are specifically UK, I guess, so UK example. But I'm sure there are many countries around the world that have a kind of like these private public interaction technology centers on different fields and themes. Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, Joost.
With this question, I have to add, this is behind me. So Eureka is, I think, the platform, especially for us. IT as a subset, focused on the IT, but I think it's the platform to do this.
Okay. Happy to hear that, because that's why we're here, and that's what brought us together. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come almost to the end of this session. I think what we've learned so far is that, yes, indeed, global collaboration is really important, but in order to facilitate this kind of global collaboration, we should not only build on the technological advances that we can make, but also to build on the creativity that we have, the different STEM skills, to provide the right platforms for collaboration, like Eureka, but still the basis is trust, right? To be able to trust one another and to build on that. And then I have a final question for our panelists. We have an audience, as you know, with 65 different nationalities. We have policymakers, people from business, academia. If you would have to give them advice on how to create profitable collaboration, what would your advice be in one word? I know it's a big challenge, but you have one word. How to create profitable collaboration. Julia.
In one word.
In one word. I know, I'm making it tough on you.
Openness.
Openness. Paul.
Culture. Get it
Culture.
I'm going to cheat.
Sorry?
I'm going to cheat. Win-win.
Win-win. Well, if you put a hyphen in between, it's one word. Okay.
Share.
Share.
Scale up.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand to our panel.